winner of MasterChef, Christine.
I'm living proof that dreams come true against all odds. I'm the MasterChef!
As I'm sure you're more than able to tell, we have a really inspirational, amazing chef here with us today, Christine Ha, and you see here her fabulous new cookbook. She's coming here to share with us some stories of doing better than you ever thought that you could, of continuous improvement, and of really kicking some butt, all of which we really love doing at work and in our personal lives as well. We are going to have a little bit of time for questions and answers after Christine speaks for a bit, but we look forward to hearing all of the great things that you've got going. So out there on the internet, we do have an opportunity for you to win a couple of cookbooks that we'll send your way, signed by the cookbook author herself. Please submit your questions, and if we pick yours, you will be the lucky winner. You'll get to cook along with Christine. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the blind cook, Christine Ha. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Thanks for that introduction. Thank you, everyone, to Blinds.com and everyone for coming here. I heard it was a busy day for you guys, and I'm coming in and taking up your time. So I hope it's a little bit worth your while. But thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. For those of you who might not know, my name is Christine Ha, and I won Season 3 of MasterChef this last year. And that I was also the first ever visually impaired contestant on the show, and obviously the first visually impaired contestant to win the show. And before I was known as, I guess, the MasterChef of the U.S. of 2012, I was probably known as John Suh's wife, or the wife of that dude in marketing. So for everyone to know, John, where are you? So at least I can acknowledge my husband, so my tie to this company. So now he won't be just some anonymous dude, hopefully. But yeah, so to prepare for today's talk, I asked John what were the top 3 reasons why he likes working at Blinds.com, because I wanted to figure out, what should I talk about? How should I tie in my story with what you guys do here? So this is some of the reasons he gave me. So the first reason he told me why he enjoys working at Blinds.com is the company culture. He says there's great company culture here. It sort of, I guess, fosters it really instills the core values of your company, and it fosters creative expression here. He does, every time he comes home from work, I ask him, what did you do today, or what are you going to do this week? And he's always telling me stories about the office, how you guys moved into a new office, and there's themed conference rooms that are, the bobblehead room or whatnot, and there's movie posters being made of the employees, and he tells me about paintball and other company team building exercises like golfing or whatnot. So I know that there's always fun stuff going on around here. And I think that company culture, that sort of unique environment breeds it's a grounds for creativity and self-expression and just not being afraid to think outside of the box, I think. And also thinking outside of the box also leads to being able to experiment without the fear of failure. And I think that's important, and I know that's one of your core values. And so thinking back to being in the MasterChef kitchen, every day we went in there not knowing what's going to happen, what they're going to throw at us. So we always had that fear of who's going to be going home that day. Will it be me? Will it be my good friend and ally? Whatever. So I think the reason I survived so long in there is there's really 2 things that I had to find a balance between. One was not overdoing myself and cooking something that was too fancy, because these judges have eaten at the finest restaurants in the world. So I knew, coming from being a home cook, I knew that there was not really anything I can do to really impress them and be like the best meal they've ever had. But at the same time, I had to be careful not to be too rooted in my comfort zone and not be afraid to think outside of the box, not be afraid to experiment with what I'm going to do with my dish. So I think finding that balance between those 2 things was really what helped me actually compete and win the whole competition. So I think that's very important, is that sort of creativity and not being afraid to fail. And also just self-expression in general and being creative is also important. So before I went on the show, I was in school trying to get my Master's of Fine Arts in creative writing. So obviously cooking and writing are my two creative outlets. And I think that's very important, is being creative and just finding a different way to do a lot of things that you do normally every day. It keeps things new. And being creative is not easy. A lot of people think, a lot of my friends who are not writers or who are not cooks, always think like, oh, being creative, that's, easy or whatever. But it's not really waiting for inspiration to strike. It's actually very hard work. And exercising your creative muscles like exercising any other muscle. And you have to do it very regularly in order for that muscle to really thrive. So I think it's important to be creative and to really try to exercise that muscle. And the way I actually stay creative culinary-wise is I do everything, I eat everything with an open mind and without any fear. So it could be like John and I went to Korea last year, and they eat this thing where it's live octopus. So I decided I'm going to do it without any fear, and even though the tentacles were still moving in my mouth, I did it just to see, experience that culture and see, why they do what they do. Or it could be something simple like someone's grilled cheese sandwich. Just everything I eat, I just really try to think, what about it can I take home with me to improve my own cooking, and what about it can I learn for my future cooking as well. So I would say do things with an open mind, do things without fear. So the second reason John said why he likes working at Blinds.com is that I think the environment here really pushes for having people think that they're in control of their own destiny and their own fate within the company. So I've heard that when positions open up within the company, you're encouraged to apply for it. You're encouraged to advance your own career development by signing up for conferences and going about just developing your own professional life and personal life. And I think that is also something that really helped me get to where I am today. Because controlling your own destiny, so for example, when I was diagnosed with neuromyelitis optica, or NMO, which is an autoimmune condition that eventually caused me to lose my vision, I really had two choices. So one was to feel sorry for myself and complain all the time and do nothing about it, or two, complain a little bit, feel sorry for myself a little bit, and then one day you just have to get up and move on, which is what I did. Because I think really that change in my life made me decide that maybe the vocation I was in was not for me, and I really wanted to do something that meant something to me more closely to my heart, which was writing and cooking. So I didn't listen to a lot of the naysayers that said, oh, you lost your vision, you can't get back in the kitchen, how are you going to be around hot objects and sharp objects or whatnot? And I didn't listen to them, and I just thought, I'm going to follow what I really love. And so I think that's what made me push forward and just do what I really wanted to do and be in control of my own destiny and not let any obstacles get in my way. So I think that's another important thing to really think about and live by, both here at Blinds.com and in your personal life. So the third thing that John told me why he likes working at Blinds.com is meeting the cool people that he's met here. And so that is all about teamwork and team building. So on the show, we have these things called field challenges or team challenges if you watch the show. So every couple of challenges, they would take us out of the MasterChef kitchen, out of the stations we're used to, and throw us into some crazy environment like running a food truck on Venice Beach, or we had to do like a hotel breakfast service starting at 3 a.m., or we had to take over a Michelin-rated kitchen's dinner service. So they take us out, and we're put into teams, and then we do these crazy challenges in environments that we don't know. And I really think that me being a team player is what helped me survive all of these field challenges. For example, when we had the challenge where we cooked for all these cowboys, so there was 4 of us on a team, and we cooked for, I don't even remember, it was probably like 100 cowboys and cowgirls. And I was put in charge of the vegetables. So our vegetable was corn. And originally, the team was like, oh, you should make a corn salsa. But for some reason in my gut, I was, being a Texas gal, I was like, no, cowboys and cowgirls aren't going to want to eat corn salsa with their steak. So I was like, I think we should keep the corn on the cob because that cuts time where I don't have to cut the corn off the cob. And I think I should just make like a really good buttery corn on the cob with like paprika, sour cream, and like red onion, which is what we had on hand. So I did voice my opinion then. And so I think being a team player, you have to know when you should voice your opinion for the betterment of the team. But at the same time, you also need to know when to shut up and not rock the boat, right? Or ask for help. So when, for example, in that same challenge, I set all of my corn on fire on the grill because I didn't see it. So Gordon Ramsay comes over and, curses at me and says, Christine, your corn is effing on fire. So I said, yes, sir. And then I asked my teammates, can you please step in and help me put out the fire? So, you learn to ask for help. And at the end of the day, you're all working towards the same goal. So you really need to be a team player. You need to listen to others, but also know when you should voice your opinion and know when to just go with the flow and not rock the boat and just just try to reach the same goal. So those are the 3 reasons, but John, being an overachiever like his wife, gave me a 4th reason why he likes working at Blinds.com. And the 4th reason is he said that Blinds.com is the #1 retailer in blinds in the world. And so obviously I think that's a testament to all of your strive for continued improvement and strive for excellency. And I really think that at the end of the day, that desire to be the best at what you can be will make you be the best that you are. And I think that for me, for example, when I first joined MasterChef and I went into the top 100 auditions in LA and I met 3 judges and I met all the other top 100 contestants, everyone, the judges, contestants, all of America when they were watching, they really thought that how is this girl going to cook blind? How is she going to be in this kitchen and compete with everyone else? And everyone thought it was a disadvantage. And yes, it could be, but I think that in the end, it turned out to be an advantage for myself because every day I went into that kitchen, I didn't really worry about what everyone else was cooking, what fancy ingredients they were using, what sort of knife techniques they had, or what, crazy, instruments of the kitchen they were using, like a sous vide machine or whatever it is. I couldn't see anything that everyone else was doing. I didn't know what they were cooking, so all I could really do was concentrate on my own game, on my own dish. And I think that really helped because I wasn't distracted by what everyone else was doing, and I was just worried about my own performance. And I think that in the long run really helped because I just went in every day saying I'm going to do the best that I can do, and how am I going to cook today better than I cooked yesterday, but not comparing myself to anyone else. And every day I just went in there thinking what's the best that I can be for myself and for these judges. And I really think that attitude, I think, is what really helped me get to where I am today as well, in life, with school, with writing, with cooking, with the show, with MasterChef. So I really think that strive for just continuously improving and just your desire to be excellent. No matter what your job is, you should really want to be the best at it that you can be, whether it's to be on the marketing team here to figure out new ways to advertise Blinds.com or to market Blinds.com, or whether it's your job to close a sale at the call center, or whether it's your job to be the CEO and lead the company, or if you're taking the trash out or vacuuming the floors. Everyone has a different job. Everyone works together in a certain way. And I think when you really try to do the best that you can do in that particular position that you're in, it all kind of exponentially increases and works towards like some greater goal, and that's really how you achieve it. So those are the things that John told me about why he likes working here, and I really try to think about how I applied that to myself, my own personal life, and my being on the show. And I guess that's it. So thanks for listening to me talk for a little bit, and hopefully you can take away something from what I've said and really apply it to your life. And that's it. Thank you.
So, guys, I know that you're not a quiet bunch at all. In fact, you're kind of a nosy, outrageous bunch sometimes. So we want to hear, what questions do you have for Christine? Yes, sir.
Hi, That was great. Craig, I'm in HR. I just had a question related to, you talked about having this like singular, undistracted vision of what you wanted and not letting other things around you impact you. I guess in the business world, we're always kind of looking around and seeing what other people are doing. And do you see any value in that, or do you think people should really focus, especially as a business, with their head down and just on what you're doing?
Okay, so I think that's actually a very good question. And I do think that as a business, you do need to know what's going on around you. I think for myself, as a cook in that kitchen, I probably could have benefited from knowing what other people are doing, but I think that's sort of a different environment when you're in that sort of a cutthroat competition and you're cooking, and these judges, are eating every dish, and they're trying every single dish, and they're judging you on that. But I think as a business, as a whole, I feel like you should pay attention to trends. You do need to see what other people are doing, but at the same time, you take it and then you try to learn from it, but you shouldn't be obsessing, I guess, is what I'm saying, over what other people are doing, because then you're using a lot of energy maybe outside, whereas you should be putting that energy into continuous improvement within your business, if that makes sense.
Yes, my name's Robert. I'm in sales. I have a question just about you specifically. What's next on your agenda?
Okay, so next on my agenda, I just put out the cookbook, so I'm trying to take a little break. But I'm working on a business plan to open up an establishment in Houston, because I know there's a lot of people excited to try my food, and that's a dream of mine. So I'm definitely trying to put that together, looking for partners and locations and whatnot to open up something here. I'm continuing to travel to do keynote addresses at a lot of conferences. Which is kind of crazy because I hate public speaking. So I was on the way here, like John was like, "Are you okay? Are you nervous?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm nervous." Before, like the night before, I can't sleep. But it's just, I know that I'm the kind of person that always wants to face my fear and do things and always take on challenges. So I know, because I am really scared of public speaking, I'm going to keep doing it until I get better at it. So there's that, and then I just graduated with my master's, and I'm working on a memoir. So my concentration was in creative nonfiction, and I'm writing about my life before the show, like my vision loss, and it's paralleling it with the year that my mom had cancer. So I'm working on a memoir, and I'm hoping to probably publish that in the next year or two. So a lot on my plate.
How do you write? When you're writing a cookbook or your memoir, what's the process that you use for that?
I think my process for writing it's very grueling. I just have to park myself at my desk in front of my computer for long periods of time with some breaks in between, and just really get words out on a page. I think that's the creative process. John and I talk about this kind of stuff all the time because he does creative stuff too. Like, he's in graphics and he does a lot of visual stuff, whereas I do a lot of the literary creative stuff. But it's really just about, like I said, being creative. I think it's hard work. It's just parking your butt in that chair and just getting stuff on a page, and then from there editing it. That's how my process for when I write fiction and creative nonfiction and poetry. But I think for writing a cookbook, it was actually a very fun exercise for me. Writing the recipes themselves might have been a little bit nerve-wracking because I was like trying to test recipes and whatnot. But writing like the stories for each recipe, it was much easier, since I do keep a blog, and I don't censor myself or edit myself as much, I think, when I was writing my cookbook as when I write creatively.
What would you say in your book is like the gateway recipe for a non-cook?
So in my cookbook, I think there are a lot of actually gateway recipes, I think, for people who don't have experience in cooking. When I was writing the cookbook, I was really careful about thinking what I would want in a cookbook. And, there's a lot of cookbooks that I have that the pictures are beautiful, I'm sure, the recipes are amazing, but they use ingredients that I can't get my hands on, or there's like, 80 steps, or like 50 ingredients, or like machines that I can't afford. So that's nice and all, but I understand for the average everyday home cook, you come home after working like 8 or 10 hours or whatever, and you don't want to like do all this fancy stuff. You just want to get dinner on a table to feed you and your family. So I think when I was writing my cookbook, I really tried to think about accessible recipes that are different, but not overly so where it's going to be difficult and you don't ever want to cook them. So there's actually a lot of recipes, I think, from all different levels. There's going to be some that, will take more time, but there's other things that are really easy. Honestly, like I think there's probably like fried rice in there, or like some stir-fried noodles in there, like soy sauce noodles, which are like from a Thai origin. Or there's like even stuff that seems kind of fancy, but it's pretty easy, like Thai basil clams, or like there's certain beef dishes or whatever. The cooking time and the ingredients are very minimal. So I think there's a lot in there, actually. But if you do talk to me later or email me or whatever, like I can probably pick out some for you. But I think if you read through them, you should be able to find some that are very accessible.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I have a question. I'm Carol. I'm in sales, and I love to cook. And I'm always having people say, "Oh, I really love this. Give me the recipe." And because I make stuff up, I have trouble like writing down the recipe. And when I cook again, it comes out a little different. When you were doing your testing of your recipes, is there some way that you kind of organize it in such a way that you can recreate it or give that recipe to somebody else who may have a different taste? Like, how do you decide when you do the testing which version is going to go in the book or is going to be like the publication recipe? Because it all, like when I do it, there's always variations that it comes out different.
Well, fortunately, when you write a cookbook, they give you a team of food stylists and editors who are also cooking with me. So I'm cooking, and I write the recipe. I send it to them. They also cook and test, and then we'll kind of get back and discuss, like, should we adjust this or whatever. But cooking is difficult when you're, I think, trying to write a recipe because a lot of times, also even when you write a recipe, other people's kitchens or other people's measurements might be a little bit different. The heating element, their oven might be different, their stove might be different. So things are I think there are a lot of variables when it comes to cooking from a recipe. But I think the best thing you can really do is just, honestly, like in your case, you probably need to just bring people over and show them. Honestly, I think that's probably the best way. And you can write a recipe as best you can, but just tell everyone that it's kind of a liquid recipe, and they need to just be able to go with it.
Yeah, I'm teaching somebody to cook now. And it's, it's hard to say, oh, well, I just do a little of this and a little of that, because they really want to know how to do it every time the right way. Yeah,
believe me, I mean, a lot of really good cooks and moms and grandmas, they don't write down their recipes. No. So, yeah. So that you just have to learn by experience. I think that's what you should probably tell them.
All right. Thank you.
My name is Stan. I'd like to know how you made the transition from a sighted person to being non-sighted in the kitchen. There must have been some danger, and I don't know, did you have some guidance, a doctor or someone who had been blind before that helped you with that transition?
So that's a good question. So how did I make my transition from being a sighted person to a non-sighted person in the kitchen? So there are agencies, whether they work for the government or a nonprofit, that will help visually impaired people try to relearn skills to live independently again. So in Texas, there's the Division for Blind Services, which is funded by the government, and they have counselors that will come in and help you learn how to do a lot of things again, like how they'll equip you with technology and skills of how to read your bills and pay your bills again, how to use the computer, how to cook, how they'll give you a talking alarm clock. There's a lot of great resources. So for me, going back in the kitchen, I think was just a matter of time. There's things like talking thermometers, talking scales. There's really long oven mitts that will prevent me from burning myself reaching in the oven. So there's definitely equipment out there for the visually impaired and for probably people of all levels of abilities to cook and be more independent.
Thank you.
I just got emailed a question from one of our partners. Tell us about the apple pie scene. I loved it. What a tearjerker. What lesson do you carry forward every day from that single experience?
I think that day moving forward, it was really learning self-confidence, learning to trust my own intuition and my guts when I cook. Baking is a little bit different for me because it's a harder science. It's very exact, and when things go in the oven, I can't see it. But I think that I have done enough cooking in my life where I know flavor profiles. I know certain sciences that go into baking. So I think it just really taught me to trust myself more and really not be so afraid, I think, to be competitive on that show in spite of disadvantages.
What was the pie scene?
It was when I had to do a pressure test, so someone was going home, whoever had the worst apple pie, and I had only baked an apple pie once before in my life before I went on that show, so I had to make the crust from scratch, the apple filling from scratch, and I took a really long time, and I got the pie in the oven probably like 18 minutes before I was up to be judged. So I was like, there's no way this pie's going to be done. I was just like laughing the whole time because I was like, I'm going home today. This is ridiculous. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I just basically cranked the oven up to probably like 500 degrees and then like hoped for the best. And when I brought up my apple pie, I didn't know what it looked like because I didn't touch it, and I thought it was going to look really, really badly. But Gordon Ramsay said the crust was perfect.
Christine has the last pie to be tasted before the judges decide who will be sent home.
How are you, Christine?
I'm all right, Chef.
Okay, first of all, I've never seen you that flustered. And then, with barely 18 minutes to go, you still were not in the oven with your apple pie. What the hell is going on?
Honestly, Chef, there's just no excuse. I just was flustered. I'm not experienced with making pie at all, so there's just really no excuse.
What do you think this pie looks like?
I think it probably looks like a pile of rubbish.
Visually, it looks stunning. It's got a nice crisp, dark brown colour on the edge.
Thank you, Chef.
The sugar has almost glazed the pastry, and it looks as delicious as Frank's. So stop doubting yourself. Be bold.
Yes, Chef.
Okay? Pie underneath. The pastry looks cooked. Can you hear that on top?
Yes, Chef.
What does that sound like to you?
It sounds good and crusty.
Good and crusty. So, stop feeling upset with yourself. Okay? You've got to start believing yourself more. Okay? Come on. Come on. Right. Hear that?
Yes, Chef.
There's not a soggy patch on there. That's all the way round. Okay? Can you hear that? On the balcony you can hear that, right?
Yes, yes,
And it's intact. Right in front of your very eyes, I have a wedge
Oh, thank God.
of a beautiful apple pie. And the flavour? The flavour's amazing. Okay? It's delicious. So well done. Okay? Congratulations. Really good job.
That recipe's in the cookbook.
With the 500-degree adjustment?
No. With the normal temperature.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
That's a good question, but it's one that I can never answer because really I don't have one favorite thing. I think I really like to experiment with new things. So I'm always trying to come up with new stuff in the kitchen. So John's like my guinea pig all the time, and he tells it like it is. So I'll know if something's working or something's not. So I really like just learning all sorts of new things. And I cook all sorts of things in the kitchen all the time.
What do you think is the most underrated ingredient?
Fish sauce. On the show, I use that a lot, and that was my secret weapon. It's a staple in Southeast Asian cooking. I grew up with it. I love it. I can eat it straight from the bottle, but I know it's very pungent, like a lot of Southeast Asian ingredients. But I think if you know how to use it right, which I do have a lot of recipes that use it in my cookbook and use it in very little amount, it really adds a lot of like umami to a dish because there's a saltiness and it's just really good. Like I have friends that add it to their spaghetti sauce and no one knows, but they're like, what is in this sauce? So
it's like anchovy paste.
Yes,
There's
it's similar to
a
anchovy
little bit,
paste.
and it's like, what is that?
Right.
It's great.
Do you have any funny stories that John's come home with?
About the company? I mean, he tells me about everyone he works with. Like, I feel like I know a lot of people here, like, probably more than well, maybe not more than they know about me since I was all over TV. But, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I always hear that it's a great environment to work in here. And, I mean, he tells me about the new office and all the interesting things that are going on in the conference rooms that are, being designed and just some of the stuff that goes on. So I don't know. John's a funny guy, so you should probably ask him. I mean, I'm sure he's got stories.
How much did your taste and smell and hearing change after you lost your sight in the kitchen? Did it change drastically? Did you know when something was burning or you hear it boiling?
So John and I will answer that question differently. If you ask him, he'll be like, what is, like, your senses are all the same. Shouldn't they be heightened? Like, why can't you hear the TV? But I think, like, honestly, that... Honestly, I don't think my senses got better per se, but I think I've become much more in tune with my other senses. So I will hear things or taste things or smell things that maybe I would not have normally noticed before when I had vision. But I think now when there's one less sense, there's one less distraction. So I think I'm more in tune with some of my other senses. So I don't think they've improved, like they've heightened in that way, but I guess they have improved where because I'm less distracted, I'm more in tune. So I think in that way, yes.
Hi, I'm Diana. I have a question for you. Just wondering, like, was there a recipe in your book that you had a lot of fun working on and that you really enjoyed that you want to speak about?
Wow, there's probably. I mean, there's tried and true recipes in there that I've been cooking for a long time, like Vietnamese egg rolls. That in there, I think that's a solid recipe that I think a lot of people should try. It's time consuming, but it's definitely worth it. I think fun recipes, I would say probably the desserts. I make a lot of ice cream from scratch. So I think there's 2 ice cream recipes in there and 1 sorbet recipe, which is what I cooked in the finale of MasterChef. And I think those are, when you're working with desserts and sweets, I mean, who can't have fun with that? So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You said that John is pretty honest with you. So is there something that you've given him that he just absolutely just did not like?
Oh, yeah, there's lots of those, actually. It's funny when in interviews, people always ask me if John cooks or how he is at home. Does he eat all my food? But honestly, John is a tougher critic than the judges on me. So he will, I think that's helped me, though, I think become as good of a cook as I am. Because he is honest, and there's a good story. So one time, this is maybe several years ago, probably when I first met him, maybe like, I guess in 2006 or so. So Seinfeld, right? I love that. That's like my favorite TV show of all time. So there's the Soup Nazi episode. And John, okay, to his credit, I'm going to blame this on him because he's the one that gave me this recipe, but there's a Mulligatawny soup that they talk about. And John finds this recipe that's like, oh, I found this Mulligatawny recipe that's, supposedly from the Soup Nazi. So he gives me the recipe online. So I follow it to the T, and I had him like probably cracking open 2 pounds of pistachios. And then there's all this black pepper that goes in the soup for this recipe for some reason. And I didn't taste it because this was before I thought about, how you should taste as you go. So I made this big stock pot of mulligatawny, and there was so much pepper in it that when we just took a whiff, and he took 1 sip, and he was like, this is the worst thing you've ever made. And I completely agreed, and we poured the whole thing down the drain, and I felt bad. But, he's the one that gave me the recipe, so it's his fault.
A as a follow-up to that question, do you throw out a lot of stuff when you experiment? Do you toss a lot, or?
Sadly, I sort of do when it's inedible. And there are some of those. I think I really try not to because I really hate wasting food. So I'll try to either turn it into something else or I force myself to eat it with a smile. But, there are times when things just come out like not edible at all and I do have to throw it away. But it's not very often, I think, yeah.
Do you have friends or neighbors that get surprise meals when do you donate your food to them?
Well, I would never feed someone else something that I wouldn't eat myself. So my neighbors do, yeah, actually my next door neighbor, he cooks a lot as well. And so sometimes when we have extra food, like we'll kind of trade food. So he'll come over and give me some stuff or we'll run over there and give him some stuff. And a lot of times, like, it's hard to cook for one person or even for two. So we'll invite friends over a lot. And so, yeah, we have a lot of people that benefit from our cooking.
I have a question. My name is Meredith. I'm in sales. When you were doing that one challenge where you guys had to switch ingredients, that's enormous pressure. I don't know how I would be able to handle that. How did you?
Okay, so for that challenge, it was a mystery box challenge, and I remember that we were able to choose our own ingredients, and I, of course, chose fish sauce. And I was going to make a Vietnamese chicken curry, which is also in my cookbook, and Monty ends up with that, and I end up with Becky's mystery box, and she's from California. She has a very, clean, gourmet style of cooking. So I had, I think a chicken breast maybe in there and heavy cream, a bunch of different mushrooms, red wine, beets, goat cheese, some kind of fancy vinegar. So I think for that I really was flustered when I got that mystery box. And I remember the judges coming around and they talked to us while we're cooking and they kept saying what are you going to do, Christine? I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of cooked. And they were like, you don't know what you're doing? You don't have a plan? I'm like, no, I don't. These are not the ingredients I chose. But, to me, I told them, I was like, I think art is a lot like this. You really don't know necessarily what you begin with, but you just kind of go and compose. And then at the end, you hope you have a symphony. And that was my only hope. So I think, I knew a little bit about beets. I've probably cooked them twice before. I like goat cheese. I know chicken. So I decided to just go, and I tried to use as many of the ingredients as possible. So what I ended up making was I seared the chicken. I put it in the oven. I made a cream of mushroom topping with that. And then I roasted the beets and made a roasted beet with goat cheese salad. And I served that together. And I tried to use as many of the ingredients as possible. So I think really what helps when you get ingredients that you don't know is just you really have to eat a lot of things. So I eat a wide variety of things of different cuisines, and you just have to know probably a little bit about a lot of things, and I think that's what helps. I know a little bit about beets, I know a little bit about making a cream of mushroom, or actually I totally guessed that, but luckily I pulled that off. But I know a little bit about making certain dressings with the ingredients that she had, so I was able to make a vinaigrette. And so I think it's just knowing a little about a lot of things, I think, is what really helps on the show. Well, it's better to know a lot about a lot of things, but knowing a little about a lot of things, I'll take.
One more question. How is it, if you're around food so much, cooking and creating all these dishes, that you say fit? And like these New Orleans chefs with large circumference.
Honestly, I don't think I'm that fit. I think, maybe part of it is genetics. I do try to be conscious about what I eat sometimes, but it is really hard, especially because I love Southern food and I love fried stuff. But I do try to work out, and I think it's trying to live a stress-free life too, because I think stress really takes a toll on us, and I know personally a lot of autoimmune conditions, they say, are triggered by stress. So I think if anything, I think you should just really try to do what makes you happy in moderation. So I don't know, I guess I can eat whatever I want in moderation because it makes me happy, and that relieves my stress. So I don't know, it's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess, but I honestly don't think I'm that fit. I think John, he's biked the MS-150 4 years in a row. He's probably more fit than me, even though we may look opposite, but I'm not that healthy.
All right, guys, we have time for one more question.
Will you please share your most memorable Gordon Ramsay experience?
Okay, aside from him cursing at me for burning my corn, because that's probably like the one of 2 times that he's cursed at me. Yeah, I guess the one funny moment, he's a really funny guy. You can see it on camera, but even off camera, he's worse than that. So he says even more un-PC stuff off camera. He always has us laughing. He's got a very big personality. So there was the one challenge where me, Becky, and Monty versus Frank, Josh, and David Martinez, we took over Hatfield's Kitchen, which is a 1 Michelin star restaurant in LA. So the girls are cooking on the team, the guys are cooking on a team. And I think our team, we were not communicating well. So Gordon was playing the expediter. So what the expediter does in the restaurant world is they are the liaison between the orders that come in and the food that gets pushed out. So he comes and tells us, he's yelling at us, 2 branzino, 2 veal, venison racks or whatever, and we're supposed to yell it back so we know, what we're doing at our station. But of course, we've never cooked in a professional kitchen, so we're all over the place. He's yelling at me all the time, telling me how many venison racks I need, and I'm not saying anything back because I'm concentrating on searing the venison. So he gets mad and he yells at all of us. He's like, 3 of you, come here right now. So we stand at the counter. They took this out of the editing, which I think they should have left it in because it was pretty funny. But we're all standing at the counter. He's yelling and cursing at us girls. And then he's like, okay, go back and, go there and finish off your dishes or whatever. So I'm still standing there at the counter. The 2 girls have left because I have no idea that they're gone. And I'm like, Chef, may I go back in the kitchen? He's like, Christine, what are you, blind? You're in the kitchen. And I was like, oh, yes, sir. And then I leave. But it was just a hilarious moment because I knew, I could tell by his voice, his intonation that he wanted to laugh so badly. But he just couldn't for camera's sake. But yeah, there's a lot of those moments with Gordon.
Well, Christine, thank you so much for
Yes,
sharing your
thank you.
amazing stories. And just to let you know, to prepare for us to get ready for you to be here today, we made a $1,000 donation to the Guthrie Jackson Foundation.
Thank you.
And all of our employees that are interested will be making donations in lieu of payment for your new cookbook, and we're so
Great.
excited. So
Thank you.
Have a round of applause for Ms. Christine. So, Internet, we haven't forgotten you. Big thanks for being here. Make sure you tweet at this lovely chef at The Blind Cook, and you can find us at Blinds.com on Twitter. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.